Welcome back to Chicago, Illinois, as we have our second straight stadium review episode in the Windy City. Today, episode number 10, we're going to historic Wrigley Field. Let's get going. Wrigley Field, located in the north side of Chicago, Illinois, originally opened in 1914, making it the second oldest MLB stadium, only behind Fenway Park, which is 2 years older. It was originally built for the Federal League team, the Chicago Whales. The ballpark is the only remaining Federal League stadium that's still open, but the Chicago Cubs moved in 1916. It adopted its current name of Wrigley Field from the Wrigley Gum Company way back in 1927. Wrigley Field was also the home of several American football teams from 1921 all the way up to 1970. It was deemed a National Historic Landmark in 2020. The current capacity is 42,495 after some major renovations were completed back in 2019. Since Wrigleyville, the area surrounding the stadium, doesn't offer many parking options, my preferred method of travel is taking the transit. There's a train station on the Red Line at Addison that's basically right outside the right field gates, and is super easy to get on and off before and after the game. The area around the ballpark is a very lively, energetic neighborhood that offers a lot of culture. While taking a walk around the perimeter of the stadium, you notice a lot of tributes to Cubs icons throughout the years. However, not too many present tributes. But recent renovations has expanded some of the footprint of the ballpark, creating these overhangs over the sidewalks. The outside of the stadium has a really classic facade which really complements the brick path surrounding it. All the green metal gates are done in a very elegant fashion, which really makes you feel like you're stepping back in time. Of all the beautiful things at the outside of the stadium in Wrigleyville, my favorite crown jewel has to be the marquee board outside the main gate entrance. The board was originally installed in 1934 but had a green color. It didn't take on its familiar iconic red until the mid-1960s. Alright, now let's get in these gates and go explore the concourse. So the main concourse has a very old, nostalgic field with bricks lining the outer wall. It was actually surprisingly spacious, which isn't something that you'd expect in an older stadium. There's also a lot of different and diverse food options on the main concourse, but we'll get to the food a little bit later. Since we got to the game really early, we had the time and the freedom to roam around the entire stadium, and the stadium is very accessible for doing such. You can see here on the upper concourse, the walkways give you a great view of the street below and that you're right there on top of the seating area. Being an older jewel box style ballpark, everything's kind of built on top of each other with a very small condensed space. Recent renovations added on this new open air concourse for the upper levels, which really helps to alleviate the congestion in the lower level concourse. Moving on to the outfield concourse, this lower level area has the bullpens there off to the side, and then down this hall they created the brand new Cubs Hall of Fame, which has plaques here dedicated to several past players and personnel, and also this trophy case with lots of memorabilia and artifacts. Opposite of the left field concourse, we had to go around the entire stadium to get down to the right field concourse. In that far right field corner, it has this giant gate with a mesh cover, and you can see right into the stadium down at field level. That gave us a really up close and personal look with Wrigley Field's iconic ivy. The ivy was first installed in 1937 and grows back every single year. Since we were there in August, it had grown quite well over the summer. However, behind that ivy is just brick wall, so any players that go hard to the wall to catch a ball, they're gonna be hitting the brick. Further down that right field concourse, there's a good homage to the ivy with this plastic ivy in center field 400 sign. That's a great photo opportunity. I don't know about you, but I think we've talked enough about the concourse. Now let's get a good look at the field of play and the seating area. As we got our first glimpse of the playing surface at the historic Wrigley Field, I couldn't help but reminisce on all the moments that this place has witnessed.
This is where Ferris Bueller was. He was over here. I watched Ferris Bueller on the plane the other day.
Oh yeah?
He was sitting over there and caught a foul ball. Also, that one dude reached the fence over there. He got kicked out. Right?
I'm glad the things that I think about are so insightful. Just like we did with the concourses, we had a lot of freedom to explore a lot of the different seating sections in the ballpark. Starting at the lowest, the seats right up against the foul lines and closest to the action are called the club box, either infield or outfield. Those club box seats also seem to have access to their own concourse, which is down below the main concourse. On the far side of the aisleway is the 100 level field box seats, which is where we sat for the game and has a great view of the action. Just above that is the 200 terrace level. This section is almost completely covered by the club level above it. I'm a big fan of seats being protected from the elements like the rain and the sun. However, there's giant poles in the middle of these sections that do obscure the view for some seats, so be careful if you end up sitting there. But hey, at least they have a nice little scoreboard hanging in here, since the overhang prohibits you from seeing the scoreboard out in center field. The mezzanine suites are right above the 200 level, and from the top of the 200 level, you can see into the walkways of those suites. It's kind of hard on a hot day to look into the nice air conditioning. At the very top is the 400 and 500 level. It seems that the 500 level seats are the only seats in the ballpark that haven't been recently replaced, as they were extremely old, rusty, and dusty. And at the very top of the 500 level, you're really close to the roof of the ballpark. They have this mesh that goes across the inside of the roof, and I believe it's to keep people from climbing on the beams. At about 6 foot tall, my head came to the very top of the net and actually brushed up against it. From up here, you also have a great view of the light fixtures, which also have a nice old-timey aesthetic to them. Wrigley Field was actually the last MLB stadium to get lights, not doing so until 1988. The first night game in the MLB was held in Cincinnati in 1935. Wrigley Field planned to get lights in 1942. However, with the outbreak of World War II, all the materials that were going to be used for the lights had to be put to the US's war effort. So now moving out of the grandstand and into the outfield. All the outfield seats are actually bleachers, and it's all open seating general admission. So if you have a seat to the outfield, you have a seat to any of the bleachers. That's why you see early on when we first got there that everyone's bunched up in the first few rows, because they want the closest seat to the field. This also prohibited us from going into those outfield bleachers because you had to have a wristband to get out there. So we weren't really able to explore. However, I owe a massive thank you to all the Cubs staff for letting us roam around the entire stadium and not really care where we went or what we did. They were extremely polite and very happy to let us go wherever. Another extremely unique feature to Wrigley Field are the baskets in the outfield wall. This really eliminates the issue of fan interference and telling if the ball went over the wall for a home run, whether it hit the yellow line or didn't hit the yellow line. Basically, if a ball lands in the basket, then it's a home run. However, an outfielder can be camped out under a long fly ball and it can just drop right in the basket and there's nothing they can do about it. But this might actually be a really good idea, considering that Wrigley Field's bleachers are a very rowdy place and they really do love their beer snakes out there. And of course, the most interesting seats in Wrigley Field aren't even in the stadium itself. So the Wrigley rooftops have been a thing since 1914, and fans would gather on rooftops of residential buildings to catch a free ball game. However, in the 1980s, they started to construct actual stands on top of these residential buildings and charge admission to watch the game. Today there are 16 different rooftops with a variety of amenities and seating, 11 of which are owned by Wrigley Rooftops, which is a way for the Cubs to also profit off of these rooftop sales. The stadium is also home to some kinda weird dimensions. Apart from the flare-out sections in the corners, the stadium also is a little off-centered, as the deepest part in center field is actually more in right center field. You can see the line here is straightaway center, but the star is the deepest part of the ballpark. It's also super tight in both the left field and the right field foul lines. I hope a player doesn't run too hard for a ball down the line, because it'll be a big impact. For food, we had a lot of great options to pick from, but I ended up going with just a sausage, and my friend Ben went with the Chicago dog, and he fancied it up himself to perfection. As the day went on in the hot sun, I saw lots of people with these really cool slushies, so I had to see what they were all about, and wow, it is definitely worth the price tag. Even the game itself had a classic feel to it. I really enjoyed these graphics on the new digital scoreboard, because it's a good touch of modern and classic vibes. However, they're always going to keep the old manual scoreboard out in straightaway center field. And have a look at those flags on top. There's a reason they call it the Windy City. Balls will sometimes fly straight out of the stadium for home runs that just look like pop-ups. I also really enjoyed getting to watch the planes flying over Lake Michigan to go to O'Hare. And despite a poor season and high ticket prices, Cubs fans still showed up in masses and were very dedicated to supporting the team.
He's gonna get tossed here. Here we go. Here we go.
Nobody wants even close!
You can see by the attendance figure, there weren't a whole lot of empty seats. However, a rain delay later in the game definitely shooed away some of the fans, causing some empty seats. I must say, this is great advertising choices from Reynolds Wrap. How perfect is that? We were still able to have some fun during the rain delay, and thankfully it didn't last too long.
That's a video.
And after the rain delay, the Cubs finally got on the board with their first hit, a home run by Patrick Wisdom, my friend Ben's favorite player.
Yeah!
So something interesting to note, that there's an ordinance in Wrigleyville that they cannot shoot off fireworks. Only on 4th of July games they're allowed to use fireworks at the games.
Yes, sir!
Which means no fireworks or any home runs hit. The Cubs ended up falling to the Kansas City Royals of a final score of 4-2. However, we still had a great time and it was an absolute blast. Definitely something to check off my bucket list of going to the historic friendly confines of Wrigley Field. So for a souvenir, I had to carry on my tradition of getting a baseball from every baseball stadium that I go to visit. They didn't have any fancy ones that I really liked, so I just went with this simple one. And since I'm not a Cubs fan, definitely didn't purchase anything else. However, my friend Ben got all suited up since he's a massive Cubs fan, and he enjoyed the opportunity to get himself some nice Cubs merch. And something that's becoming a staple for all Stadium Review episodes in Chicago, we had to finish the day off with some deep dish pizza. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you can see more videos, because we have lots more coming soon. This is 10 Stadium Review videos done now, and I'm extremely excited for what's gonna come next. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.